Welcome to another installment of Everything NHL, the hockey segment of the Fantasy Fanatics Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan, and we're here with our hockey expert, James Kumar.
Hey, what's up, man?
So today we're going to go over Thursday and Friday's games. We'll take a look at some pickups so you guys can take a look at, and then we'll preview Saturday's games.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's get into it.
All right, so let's start with Thursday's game, starting with Tampa Bay versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. Hard-fought victory by Tampa Bay. They were able to get a solid win over the Maple Leafs by about 2 goals. Andre Casey for Toronto with a goal. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare for Tampa Bay with a goal. Steven Stamkos with a goal. And William Nylander with a goal for Toronto. And in the second period, we had Andre Palat with the third goal for Tampa Bay and Taylor Radish for the fourth goal for Tampa Bay. And in the third period, we had Andre Casey with another goal for Toronto and Andre Palat with another goal for Tampa Bay. And what do you think about these two teams?
Yeah, obviously Toronto hasn't had Mitch Marner for quite a little bit. He has an injury. Jason Spezza out with the suspension. So I know Toronto was missing some players in this game. So it's understandable that they won't be able to match up to Tampa Bay. But I mean, Tampa Bay's been missing Kucherov for a lot of the year as well. So I feel like Tampa Bay just played the better game here. Yeah, they were able to sort of capitalize pretty early, actually. They went up 2-1, then they went up 3-2, 4-2. Then they sort of took the lead, and then they were able to hold it. So, yeah, good win for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I guess the defending champs still have some tricks up their sleeves.
Yeah, honestly, they just played a really good game. And I think both teams are playing pretty well. I wouldn't slight Toronto on this game. But, yeah, Tampa Bay is playing really solid, too.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess moving on to the next game, we have a shutout from Chicago against the Montreal Canadiens. They had Jonathan Toews in the second period for Chicago and Henrik Borgstrom for Chicago in the third. And I guess, what do you think about these two teams?
Honestly, it's a big win for Chicago. Marc-Andre Fleury's only the third goalie in history with over 500 wins after this game. So that's pretty impressive for him. He's one of like the top 3 goalies all time in terms of wins. So yeah, he played really well, got the shutout here against Montreal. We know how bad Montreal's been all year. It's just another example of that. And then yeah, Chicago slowly getting better and better. We talked about that. They're slowly picking it up. So I like what they did here, getting the win.
For sure. And moving on to Anaheim versus Columbus. Pretty solid win by Anaheim. Was all the way down to the wire, basically won by a shutout. Alexandre Texier for Columbus in the first period, and Isaac Lundstrom for Anaheim in the first as well. And what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, Anaheim, they've been just coming up with clutch wins, whether it's regulation or extra time. Great shootout for this team. Both Raquel and Ziegler scored to win it for Anaheim in the shootout. Yeah, I think they have like a 6-game point streak at this point. So they're either winning regulation overtime, and the only time they lose is in overtime or shootout. So still getting a point out of pretty much every game, staying in the hunt there in the West. As I mean, a 15-8-5 record's not too shabby. And then for Columbus, we talked about their regression. They've sort of had it. They're getting really close to 500 now as they've been falling back. Not much else I can say. It was sort of expected from Columbus.
Yeah, as long as they can stay around 500, they still have a chance.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But then again, there's a lot of strong teams in the East. I think like Boston is creeping up behind them, might even be ahead of them at this point. So yeah, there's teams in the East that want to get in. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess speaking of a tough game, we have the Nashville Predators with pretty solid win over the New York Islanders. They were able to take this game 4-3. We have Austin Charnick for the Islanders in the first period, and Ryan Johansson and Colton Sissons for Nashville in the first. And in the second period, we had Anders Lee for the Islanders. And in the third period, we had Noah Dobson for the Islanders, the third goal of the game, and Yakov Trenin and Eli Tolvanen for Nashville in the third period as well. And what do you think about these two teams?
Honestly, Nashville's been pretty solid. They've been pretty underrated too, playing really well this year, in my opinion. So good win for them, good comeback for sure. And then for the Islanders, we talked about how much they've been slumping. This is like their 12th loss in 13 games or something. So they just keep finding new ways to lose. I honestly don't know what to say about this team except it's going to be really hard for them to even have a chance of making the playoffs this season. Probably just a season where they can just pretty much forget about it at this point.
Well, I guess there's always playing spoiler.
Yeah, that and possibly tanking to get a good draft pick. But I guess other than that, yeah, it's pretty much done.
Yeah. And I guess moving on to another high scoring game, we have St. Louis beating the Red Wings 6-2. Really impressed job by St. Louis. We have Nathan Walker with 2 goals in the first period. And then in the second period, we had Colton Parayko with the third goal of the game for St. Louis, and Robbie Fabry getting a goal on the board for Detroit. And we have Nathan Walker with his third goal of the game in the third period for St. Louis, as well as Ivan Barbashev and Marco Scandella also putting some goals on the board, and Robbie Fabry with his second goal of the game for Detroit. And what do you think about this game?
Yeah, really solid for St. Louis, especially Nathan Walker getting a hat trick after he was called up from the American Hockey League to fill in. So yeah, really solid overall. Yeah, St. Louis, they have a solid record, 14-8-4, really solid. Detroit, sort of in a similar spot that Columbus is in, similar record as well. Just they're in the hunt for the playoffs. They sort of had some regression. They definitely need to, try and get some wins here if they want to stay in the hunt.
Yeah, I would say that even if they do end up falling out of contention for making the playoffs, I'd still say this was a pretty successful year for Detroit, considering they're still rebuilding.
Yeah, and considering how bad people expected them to be, they've actually been pretty decent. Like they've gotten a lot of wins recently. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, in a sense, they kind of overachieved.
Yeah, maybe they either overachieved or they've been sticking to the process and they're starting to grow. So we'll have to see.
For sure. And I guess moving on to a more close game, we have Carolina clutching it out in overtime against Calgary. We have Sebastian Aho for Carolina in the first period and Noah Hannafin for Calgary in the second. And Sebastian Aho was able to get another goal in overtime. And what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, Carolina, they've been hot all year. They have a record of 18-6-1. They're just really solid. Calgary, they've lost their third game in a row. I'm really questioning what's going on with this team. Hopefully they'll be able to bounce back in their next game. But yeah, losing in overtime, at least you get a point out of it. So I guess they just have to take that as a positive and move forward from there.
Yeah, I mean, on the bright side, it was Carolina, but just one of the more solid teams. I mean, just last week, Calgary went on a pretty decent streak, and they seem to keep it close with some of the better teams in the league, at least.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Hopefully they can just bounce back in their next game.
Sure. And moving on to the next game, we have another really close game between Boston and Edmonton. Boston was able to take this 3-2. We have Brad Marchand in the first for Boston. And in the second period, we have Jake DeBrusk for Boston and Leon Draisaitl for Edmonton. And Leon Draisaitl for Edmonton again in the third period. And Matt Grelchek for Boston in the third. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, honestly, outside of Leon Draisaitl, I don't know how much juice the Oilers had in this game. I mean, Boston, they were leading pretty much the whole game until it got tied, and then they just took the lead right after. Great win for Boston. The Oilers, they've been slipping a little bit. So I think I think it's like what, four straight losses for Edmonton. So they really need to turn things around here. I don't know what's going on with them. But of course, McDavid and Draisaitl continue to score. They each have 2 points in this game. Not much else to say on their end. And Boston keeps improving their record. So good on them.
For sure. And I guess moving on, we have another really good game by Winnipeg. They were able to get a shutout against Seattle. We have Dominic Toninato for Winnipeg in the first. No goals in the second period, but Kyle Connor was able to get 2 more goals on the board for Winnipeg in the third period. And what do you think about these two teams?
Honestly, this was a business as usual win for the Jets. They just went into Seattle, just played the way they normally play. Connor Hellebuck gets his shutout, and the Jets get goals. And it was a good win for them. And then as for Seattle, it's just a tough first season overall. Can't really hate on them for that. They are an expansion team, but at the same time, it really looks like they can't compete some nights. I don't know whether it's the effort, the talent. I don't know what it is, but good win for the Jets.
And I guess for Seattle, this is just they're just kind of getting their feet wet, trying to get used to the league. And I guess probably in the off season they'll kind of figure out where they want to go from there.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely improve. They have a lot of salary cap space, so they can probably acquire players, make different deals, that kind of thing.
Sure. And moving on to our next game, we have another shutout by the LA Kings. They were able to get 4 goals to Dallas's 0. No goals in the first period, but Adrian Kemp for LA in the second. And then we have 3 goals in the third period for LA by Arthur Kaliev, Victor Arvidsson, and Andreas Athanasio. What do you think about these two teams?
I think Dallas is coming off a back-to-back. It's really hard to sort of blame them for this loss. And then at the same time, though, I think LA, like they've been losing a lot as well. So it was a good bounce back win for the Kings. And then Dallas, like they have been playing well, so that's why I'm thinking it just might be them coming off a back-to-back. Maybe they didn't start off the game as well as they could have. But honestly, I feel like both teams. This is a game where they'll just go in a better direction from after. The Kings hopefully, playing better after this, and then Dallas just sort of getting a bounce back.
Yeah, I feel like even though this was kind of a loss that you definitely don't want to have, I feel like you can't really sleep on Dallas too much. They should be able to come back from this.
Yeah, I was gonna say like they've been playing so solid. Like I think this is just sort of a one-off.
For sure. And so moving on to the next game, we have another really big score difference between Minnesota and San Jose. Minnesota was able to take this game 5-2. We have Kevin Fiala in the first period for Minnesota. And in the second period, we have Joel Eriksson and Jordan Greenway for Minnesota. And in the third period, we have Jonathan Dalen and Thomas Hurdle putting some points on the board for San Jose, and Jordan Greenway with another goal, and Kirill Kaprizov with a goal of his own for Minnesota. And what do you think about these two teams?
Yeah, I mean, nothing much more to say about Minnesota. They've won 8 games in a row. They're first in the West. They're playing some of the best hockey they've been playing ever right now. So they're really solid. Sharks aren't a bad team. They just ran into a hotter team, in my opinion. So Sharks just got to look to bounce back next game. But yeah, Minnesota, they're pretty much on fire.
For sure. And I guess we can go on to Friday's games, and we'll go over, I guess, the Rangers against Buffalo. This was a pretty solid effort by both teams, but our Rangers were able to come away with the win. We have Mika Zibanejad in the first period for the Rangers, Alex Lafreniere for the Rangers in the second, and Brett Murray putting a point on the board for Buffalo in the third. What do you think about these two teams?
Yeah, for the Rangers, they've had goaltending injuries. They really needed the win. I think their backup goalie Georgiev got the win. And then as for Buffalo, yeah, we talked about their fall. They've really fallen off. I think their record's now 8-15-3. They've lost 6 straight games. Yeah, so it's pretty much the tale of two different teams. Rangers being one of the hottest teams in the league and Buffalo being one of the coldest teams.
Yeah, I guess for Buffalo, I still think this season isn't really too bad so far considering the record last year. So I guess they're just trying to take one step at a time.
Yeah, pretty much. I definitely agree.
And I guess moving on to our next game, we have Pittsburgh versus the Washington Capitals. Pretty dominant performance by Pittsburgh. We have Danton Heinen in the first period for Pittsburgh, and Brock McGinn and Kasperi Kapanen for Pittsburgh in the second. In the third period, we have Evgeny Kuznetsov and Lars Eller for Washington in the third, and Jeff Carter for Pittsburgh in the third as well. And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big win for Pittsburgh. I know they had some guys out in this game, but they just came into Washington. They got a big win. So, yeah, they played really solid. Um, Honestly, yeah, this Pittsburgh team, they've been playing really well as of late. 13-8-5, pretty solid record. They're getting pretty close to Washington. So, more wins like this, they'll definitely get closer. And yeah, Washington's still one of the best teams in the Metro Division. Not much else to say other than they lost to a Pittsburgh team that pretty much just wanted it more. And yeah, a good game from both teams.
Yeah, their games are always pretty competitive, I guess, mainly because they're kind of like rival teams. So yeah, they're usually pretty competitive.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
And moving on to our next game, we have Nashville versus New Jersey. Pretty solid win by Nashville. They were able to clutch the game out in the third period, 3-2. No goals in the first period, but the Belzacha for New Jersey in the second. And we have Roman Josi and Eli Tolvanen for Nashville in second as well. In the third period, we have Yakov Trenin with the third goal for Nashville and Yegor Sarangovic for New Jersey with the second goal for New Jersey. And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like every time we come on here, we're talking about Nashville getting a win. They got another win here. I think they won like 4 in a row. They've been playing really solid. Yeah, they're looking like one of the better teams out there in the Central Division and in the West in general. So really solid. And as for New Jersey, we talked about regression. They're now a 500 team since we talked about it. So yeah, regression is definitely happening for them. They got off to that hot start, but when a team's playing above their heads, you can kind of expect that. So yeah, they're now around 500.
Yeah, well, I'd say that New Jersey is also one of those teams that I guess you've been saying it for weeks now. They're probably gonna have a dip. So I guess hopefully New Jersey finds a way to stay around 500 and the dip doesn't get too bad.
Yeah, for sure.
And I guess moving on to the next game, we have the Avalanche with another burial against Detroit. They were able to take this 7-3. Really surprising score there. JT Comfort and Andrei Burakovsky and Darren Helm as well in the first period. Vladislav Nemetsnikov for Detroit in the first period as well. And in the second period, we have Joe Veleno for Detroit and Nathan McKinnon, Andrei Burakovsky, and Samuel Girard for Columbus, and Philip Hronik for Detroit as well. And in the third period, we have Cale Makar with an additional goal for Columbus in the third period. And what do you think about this dominant performance by the Avalanche?
Yeah, honestly, Colorado, they're just one of the best teams in the league. Their record now shows that they got off to a little bit of a slow start. 15-7-2 is really solid. And then we just talked about Detroit. I don't know, they're finding ways to sort of regress a little bit. Got off to that good start. I don't know if they'll be able to sort of keep their place there in the East. But yeah, as for the Avalanche, they're getting really hot right now.
Yeah, I'd say, I guess they still maybe have a chance, I guess, for um, between Detroit, I guess, New Jersey, and Buffalo, I guess, for teams in the East, since they're all in a similar situation. So I guess hopefully they'll be able to figure something out.
Yeah, hopefully. I think they're better off than some of these other teams. Like, who do we talk about? We talked about Columbus. We talked about Buffalo. Then maybe one other team in the East. But yeah, I think Detroit, they're better off. They're sort of building a solid team there. I think New Jersey was the other team we talked about. But yeah, I definitely think Detroit's better off than a lot of those teams in the East.
For sure. And moving on to our next game, we have Florida versus Arizona. Really dominant performance by the Panthers. They were able to take the lead in the first and basically keep it the entire game. Patrick Hornquist, Sam Bennett, and Sam Reinhart for Florida in the first. Phil Kessel with the only goal for Arizona in the game in the first period as well. No goals in the second and third period. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, good win here for Florida. I mean, they're just such a hot team right now. I think what are they on the year? 18, 4-4. That's as solid as it gets. But yeah, great win for them. Arizona, they've only won 5 games on the year. They're probably not going to win a lot more if I'm being if I'm being honest. But yeah, these are just like two opposite end of the spectrum teams. Like Coyotes are like bottom of the West, Panthers are like top of the East. So yeah, really not much else to say here.
Yeah, I guess Arizona's kind of in a similar position that Buffalo was in last year. They're just not going to get too many wins.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I agree with that.
Sure. And I guess moving on to our, I guess next section. There's only about 2 games left. Philadelphia versus Vegas is about tied up right now, and Winnipeg and Vancouver is also tied up in the second period. So we won't be covering those games, and I guess we'll move on to pickups. And who do you have for forwards?
All right, so my pickups for the week for forwards. I'll start off with Ryan Johansson for the Nashville Predators. He's center eligible, around 40% rostered. He's been pretty solid as of late. I think he's had like what in the 4 games before this last game, he had like what 6 points in his past like 3 games or something crazy like that. He's +2 in every game. He's getting like shots in every game. He's playing on the power play. I think one of those games he had like 4 hits as well. So he's covering categories. If you need a center, if you have an injury, something came up, definitely go pick up Johansson. I have a guy from his team as well, Eli Tolvanen. He's more of a deep league kind of guy, but he plays both wing spots and he's playing really well. So he's had goals in 4 straight games. He's a +6 over those 4 games, and he's averaged 3 shots per game, and he's averaged 2 hits per game. So definitely go pick him up. He's going to really help you out. For forwards, I also have Valerie Nichushkin from Colorado, both wing spot eligible. He's around 30% rostered. He gets like lots of shots, lots of hits every game. He's averaging about 3 or 4 shots a game, averaging 2 hits per game. His plus minus has been solid. I think he's been +2 in like 3 out of his past 5 games. So really solid. And he's had pretty much a point per game in his last 6. So yeah, definitely go pick up Nichushkin. And then my last forward pickup is Michael Bunting from Toronto. He's pretty much playing on a line with Austin Matthews. It's around 40% rostered. So if you're playing with such a talented player like that, you're going to get points. He's been lighting it up. I think in his last 7, he's had around 7 points. So playing really solid. His plus minus has been good. He's getting at least a shot every game, if not more. And yeah, definitely really solid. So go pick up Michael Bunting too.
For sure. I've got a couple of guys that maybe people can take a look at. I'll talk about, I guess, even Barbashev first. 20% roster, 9 goals, 9 assists. He's +2, 39 shots. He gets hits, he gets goals, he gets plus minus. I guess his biggest value is shots, goals, and assists, and he won't hurt you in plus minus as well. So he should be available in most leagues. And I guess The next guy I'm going to talk about is Evan Rodriguez for Pittsburgh. So far, he has 8 goals, 10 assists, 82 shots. He's +5, so really good all around, 34% roster, and he should be available in most leagues as well. And I guess my last forward is going to be Bone Jenner for Columbus. In terms of plus minus, he is not really the best because Columbus hasn't been doing too well, but he gets a lot of shots, he gets goals, he gets assists. So if you're not really too worried about plus minus, then I think he is a player that you can take a look at. And who do you have for defense?
For defense, I have Jamie Alexiak again, just because he's like one of these guys that will get you hits every game pretty much. He's been getting shots as well. I think he's had 2 shots in like per game over his past 6. So he's just been really solid. And then getting to plus minus, I mean, he's been a +2 over his past 4, and Seattle's not even that great of a team, and he's still in the plus. So really solid. He'll chip in points here and there. I think in his last 7 games, he has like 6 points or something. So yeah, you'll get points out of him. But yeah, he's mostly known for those like gritty stats. So definitely if you're in like a bangers league, go pick him up. He's really solid. Also, I have Colton Parayko from St. Louis, around 30% rostered. He's sort of picking up the offense. He had a lot of shots and a lot of hits for most of the year. The offense is sort of coming around. His plus minus, it's not too bad. It's not going to hurt you. But 3 points in his past 3 games for a defenseman is really solid. So definitely go pick up Parayko as well.
For sure. And I've got a couple of guys for defense as well. Talk about Jonas Brodin first. From the, I guess Minnesota Wild, about 32% rostered right now. He had a big jump in the last day. So far, he's got 3 goals, 11 assists. He's +8, and he has 51 shots. So really good for a defenseman all around, especially good at assists and plus minus. So if you really need any of those stats, he's definitely someone that you can take a look at, and he should be available in most leagues. And I guess staying in Minnesota, there's also Dmitry Kulikov. He's only 1% rostered, so he's more of a, I guess, a deep league pick, but he's also at +8 for plus minus. He has 3 goals for the season right now and 9 assists and 17 shots. So he's mostly good for assists and plus minus. So if you need those, you can take a look at him in deep leagues. If you're in a shallow league, you probably don't need to pick him up. Maybe just put him on a watch list in case he gets hot or something. And that's about it for defense. But who do you have for goalies?
Yeah, so for goalies, I have Peter Mrazek from Toronto. He's coming back from injury. He's supposed to get the start on Saturday's game. So he's around 45% roster in Yahoo leagues. Go pick him up. Playing for Toronto, you're going to get wins for sure. His stats were a little shaky at the beginning of the year, but they should clean up a little bit as he is going to be getting healthy. So to go pick up Peter Mrazek.
For sure. And I guess my goalie for the week would be Eric Comrie for the Winnipeg Jets. About 13% rostered in leagues right now, so he should be available in most, especially deep leagues. Yet has 3 wins for the season right now. His goal against average is 2.49. His save percent is .913. So pretty decent goalie. If you need an extra goalie off the waiver wire, I feel like he's someone that you can take a look at. And that's about it for the that's about it for the pickups. So we're gonna go on to the preview now, and I guess we'll start with Tampa Bay versus Ottawa. Who do you think is going to take this?
Honestly, I might just have to go with Tampa Bay. The way they've been playing, they've just been playing so solid. They got a nice win against Toronto the other day. They've just been winning a lot of games. So yeah, I'll go with Tampa there.
All right. And moving on to the next game, we have Montreal versus St. Louis. Who do you think takes this game?
I mean, St. Louis is at home, and we talked about how well that they've been playing lately. It almost looks like it's a no-brainer to go with St. Louis here, so I'm going to do that.
All right. Moving on to Washington versus Buffalo. I assume you can expect a win from Washington.
Yeah, both teams are coming off back-to-backs. I expect Washington to sort of bounce back here after that loss against Pittsburgh. Buffalo's a much easier team for them to face, so I'm going to go with Washington.
Right. And moving on to Chicago versus the Maple Leafs. Do you think the Maple Leafs can get a win here?
They should be able to get a win here, but honestly, it just depends. I mean, if Marc-Andre Fleury goes in net for Chicago, makes it almost an even game at that point. This game could go either way. I am going to side a little bit with Toronto, but yeah, don't be surprised if Chicago does get a win here.
All right. Moving on to Anaheim versus Pittsburgh. Who do you think gets to keep the win streak?
Yeah, you're right. That is tough. I might go with Anaheim just because Pittsburgh coming off a back-to-back. A lot of their players are banged up as well. I know they're at home, but I might slightly lean towards Anaheim here.
All right. And moving on to New Jersey versus the Islanders. Both teams not doing so hot. So who do you think takes this?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to lean with New Jersey just because I can't trust the Islanders until they start winning consistently. One win in their past 13 games isn't gonna cut it. Gotta go with New Jersey here.
All right. And I guess moving on to the Philadelphia Flyers versus the Arizona Cardinals. Who do you think takes this?
Yeah, I wish they were as good as the Arizona Cardinals, but yeah, the Coyotes, I can't trust them. I gotta go with Philadelphia here, even coming off a back-to-back. Both Arizona and the New York Islanders, they're just two teams I've just been consistently fading all year. Got to do it again here and go with Philly.
All right. And moving on to Columbus versus Seattle. Who do you think takes this?
Oh, this one's tough actually. Um, I don't know. I might lean towards Seattle at home, maybe. Yeah, this one could honestly go either way. Yeah, I might lean a bit towards Seattle just because they're at home, but or else these two teams are pretty even.
All right. And I guess moving on to Boston versus Calgary. Do you think Boston can take this?
They might be able to. Calgary's been on a bit of a schneid lately. They lost 3 games in a row. Yeah, Boston might be able to get the win. Actually, I think they have been playing better, so I might go with Boston here.
All right. And moving on to Carolina versus Edmonton. Carolina's been really solid, so do you think they take this?
Yeah, they might be able to. I don't know. I just feel like the Oilers, they need to get a bounce back, and they're at home now. I think maybe this is where the Oilers get it done. I might slightly lean with the Oilers, but yeah, this is another game that can go either way.
All right. And moving on to Minnesota versus the Kings. Who do you think is going to take this?
Yeah, that one's a tough one because I did say that I expect the Kings to play better, but I don't think I can fade Minnesota until they stop winning. So I'm gonna go with the Wild here.
All right. And moving on to the last game of the preview, we have Dallas versus San Jose. Who do you think is going to lose their losing streak?
Honestly, I feel like Dallas should be able to win this game, but this is one of these games that the Sharks are at home. It's on the West Coast that they could actually get the win. It's a toss up. I'm gonna lean slightly with Dallas, but honestly, this one could go either way.
All right. And that about brings us to the end of the podcast. Do you have any final thoughts?
Honestly, it's just pretty much what we've been talking about every week. The teams are sort of establishing themselves in their respective conferences. We're starting to see some of the hot start teams that aren't really deep. They're starting to fade now. We talked about teams like New Jersey. We talked about Detroit, Buffalo, Columbus, like teams like that. They went on hot starts. Even the Kings might be a good example of that, and then they just couldn't keep it up. So yeah, there's other teams that are really hot right now. We talked about Pittsburgh. We talked about Tampa Bay. We talked about Nashville. We talked about Minnesota. There's a lot of good teams playing good hockey right now. So, yeah, and then you got the teams there at the top: Minnesota again, Carolina, Florida, Washington. All these good teams. Yeah, the league's looking really solid right now.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised that Edmonton hasn't been doing so hot considering how good their players are on offense.
Yeah, it's a losing streak they need to snap out of. So, I'm expecting them to do something against Carolina. Maybe they don't get it done, but yeah, they definitely got to bounce back.
For sure. And I guess that about wraps everything up for everything NHL this week. If you liked what you watched, you can subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a like, leave us a review. Let us know your thoughts on the NHL so far. If you liked what you listened to, you can follow us on Spotify, and you can also follow us on Apple Music and Google Podcasts. If you need some sports picks, you can follow us at FanFan Podcast on both Twitter and Instagram. And we'll see you guys next week.